Okay, so welcome everyone to this third webinar in our series of short LoadRunner Enterprise and LoadRunner Cloud webinars. My name is Anders Nilsson and I'm the Technical Solutions Consultant for LoadRunner Cloud and LoadRunner Enterprise on SaaS. And we are in today's webinar going to look at the different options available to us if we would like to make use of load generators in the cloud with LoadRunner Enterprise. So for the agenda for today, I will then look at 4 different options on how to make use of load generators hosted in the cloud. Most of the session will be spent on the last 2 items here, since there are a number of configurations needed with those, but we'll also briefly talk about the 2 first ones as well, but that will only be a slide each more or less. So what we're looking at are Micro Focus SaaS hosted LDs, load generators. If you're using LoadRunner Enterprise on SaaS, then we have cloud-based on-premises load generators, or perhaps standalone load generators in the cloud is a better term for that. We will look at the AWS or Azure cloud integration with LoadRunner Enterprise in more detail, and we will also look at LoadRunner Enterprise CloudBurst and how to use that. But before going into the different available solutions, we can talk a little bit about why we would use cloud-hosted load generators. And first of all, it saves money on hardware cost, simply due to there is no need to buy or even maintain any servers. They are also very scalable, the solution is also very scalable, both horizontally, so that you can quickly increase the number of load generators when needed, and also vertically, so that you can easily use more powerful load generators if required for your testing. And then finally, also your customers are perhaps accessing your applications from around the world. So why shouldn't you test them in a similar fashion by driving load from different regions around the globe? And so this is perhaps not the first item people think about when we talk about cloud load generators. And it is also sometimes a subject that can cause some confusion. But if you are using LoadRunner Enterprise on SaaS, then you can have access to what we would call SaaS-hosted load generators. These used to be machines hosted in our own data centers, but since we have moved our infrastructure onto Amazon AWS, that means that the SaaS-hosted load generators are nowadays, in fact, AWS-hosted cloud load generators nowadays. And the benefits of using SaaS-hosted load generators are that they are always on, and so to say, they are always available to you. So there's no need to wait for them to be spun up as you normally might do if you're using any of the other solutions. There is also no customer setup required, since all the configurations are done by Micro Focus SaaS, and we are then also responsible for the health of the load generators, as of course we are for the rest of the LRE SaaS infrastructure. These load generators do have dedicated IP addresses, which allows for whitelisting in any firewalls that you might have. So with the correct setup, it is then possible to test internal applications as well. But in general, I would say that they are especially suited for testing internet-facing applications out of tests. And they are hosted on AWS in the 2 locations that we are using for hosting LoadRunner Enterprise, which are in Frankfurt in Germany and in Oregon in the USA. And before the cloud integration was added into LoadRunner Enterprise and before LoadRunner Enterprise CloudBurst was available, then if you wanted to make use of cloud-hosted load generators, you basically had to build your own solution for that. And you can still do that, of course, if required, which means that you would manually spin up, for example, an AWS EC2 instance in the cloud, and you then install and configure the standalone 1LG software on it. And you connect it to LoadRunner Enterprise using an MI listener, which is then the same over firewall solution used as if you would be installing an on-premises load generator. So this then comes with some prerequisites, which then requires that you have your own external account with a cloud provider, and that all costs are then between you and the cloud provider. It also requires that you have the cloud experience needed for the setup, since this is all done by you, the user. And depending if you keep the machines running and not spin them down when not needed, it can also then allow for faster startup times if you do a lot of testing. But then if you don't spin them down and keep them going all the time, that then of course incurs a larger cost to you. And this solution also allows for custom load generator images and locations to be used. So if it requires, the machines can have additional applications installed, for example, SAP GUI clients, if you are testing for that. And this is, of course, also possible with the LoadRunner Enterprise Cloud integration and with the LoadRunner Enterprise CloudBurst solution. And also, finally, this allows for launching load generators into specific AWS or Azure VPCs or virtual private clouds, which again is also possible with the other solutions. So if you're looking at the LoadRunner Enterprise Cloud integration here, the third way to do this is to use the built-in cloud integration in LoadRunner Enterprise. And again, it requires your own account with a cloud provider, which can be either with AWS or with Azure. And it allows you to dynamically provision cloud load generators around the globe from any supported location. It does require some cloud experience for a setup, so it is recommended that you have someone within your organization that has experience with a selected cloud provider. But if you don't, it's quite easy to read up on it yourself, and the Micro Focus LoadRunner Enterprise support might be able to assist you with some pointers for this as well. And as with the previous solution, it also supports the usage of custom load generator images. Although the cloud integration solution comes with some pre-configured LG images, and it also allows for launching load generators into specific AWS or Azure virtual private clouds if you already have such a setup within your organization. And as with anything else, there are extensive instructions on how to set this up on the LoadRunner Enterprise side in the online help located at admhelp.microfocus.com. So if there are any items that you do wonder about, you will hopefully find the answers there in the online helps. Then on the cloud side, I'm going to use AWS as the example here in this presentation, but you can also do similar items if you're using Azure. So what you first need to do is to create an AWS account into which you then set up a dedicated user for the LoadRunner Enterprise integration. You will have to configure a virtual private cloud network, a VPC, and attach a subnet to it as well. And then finally also set up a security group with suitable access rights so that LoadRunner Enterprise can access and launch EC2 instances on which then it will run the load generator software on. And again, this is where you need someone within your organization that have some knowledge around this or around the selected cloud provider, or at least you have someone that is actually interested in learning to do this, because there is some reading to do around that. But once you have your AWS account details, which you need is the access key, the secret key, and the account number, which you see here on the screen. You can then add these details in the LoadRunner Enterprise administration under the cloud section, and by just then clicking add cloud account. And then when you save these details, LoadRunner Enterprise will then contact AWS and do some checkups, just make sure that the account is there, it's valid, and so on and so forth. And so that will take a couple of seconds, but once that's been verified, the account is then added in the administration, and you then have to assign this cloud account to any of the projects that you think should have the possibility to run tests on the cloud load generators. You will also have to update the cloud network settings and the ports used for this. And using the ports of 443 and 80 worked when I did this on my SaaS instance here. But if you do start a test and you see that the cloud load generators are being provisioned in AWS, if you check in the console there, but you notice that the test is never actually starting in LoadRunner Enterprise, then you might have to verify that the correct ports are being used and that they are also opened in your company firewalls. And again, this is of course also outlined in the online help, so please check there for any more information around this. The second part is then to add a template for the load generator, which is what defines what operating system, what location, and which type of AWS instance type that you will be using when provisioning the cloud load generator. And that is done by clicking the Add Template as well. And what's important here is that the location is the same as you have defined in your AWS cloud account, since that is tied to a specific AWS region. And in my example here, I use London for my demo. The instance type is also defined here, and the bigger and better the hardware you want, the more expensive it is for you. So for my demo here, or for my testing when I did this, I made use of what is called a T2.micro instance, and since they are actually for free when you sign up for an AWS account, and so they are perfect for learning how to set this up. But again, it's certainly not an instance that you would use if you actually want to run some larger performance tests on it. And we also have to add a security group and a key pair here. And these are the details that are created when you configure your VPC on AWS. And once saved, then our template will be ready for us, and we can start using it in our load tests. And at the top here, you might also notice that there are a large number, 86 of them, available host templates. So just to highlight my newly created one, I just filtered on the cloud account here, so I can see my two templates I've added here. Because when you do sign up, and especially when you set up your LoadRunner Enterprise CloudBurst account, then there would be a large number of templates, so it might be hard to find what you just set up. All right, so then in order to make use of a new cloud load generator in a load test, we log into the application side of LoadRunner Enterprise, and we pick a load test and then go in and edit the test by clicking the Edit Test button. And then we click on the Assign Load Generators button here. We go onto the Elastic Cloud tab, and then we click on the plus sign or the Add button there. When we select our newly created template, we click Add, and then that template is added and as an available cloud load generator. And we can then select our scripts and the cloud load generator, and then assign that load generator to those scripts. And we can then see that the cloud load generator has been assigned as the load generator for those two scripts, as we would do with a normal load generator that you have access to. So the act of running or starting the test is just a matter of doing that as usual. Click the Start Test button. And the only difference is that we now see this provision by location map, which will then show us where in the world we are launching our cloud load generators. And in my case, London is displayed because that is where I launched my load generator. If we then simultaneously log in and check in the AWS EC2 console on the AWS website, we can then see that our instance is indeed initializing and starting up. Then a couple of minutes later, it has passed the AWS status checks, and it is then considered to be up and running. And if we then switch back into LoadRunner Enterprise, well, we can now see that the EC2 instance has indeed been successfully provisioned. And then once the rest of the startup steps have finished, we then have our test up and running as any normal load test would be. Now, and one thing is very important here though, and that is that at the end of a load test, make sure that you collate your results. And this is since if you do not do that and you stop the test, the EC2 instance will then be shut down and terminated, and any uncollated results will be lost forever. So never forget to collate the results when you are stopping a test. And then once the test is stopping, we can check in the EC2 console again, and we can then see how our load generator is shutting down and will soon be terminated. All right, so let's have a look at LoadRunner Enterprise CloudBurst. And so for those who would like to keep things simple, but still would like to leverage the global cloud and some of the different cloud providers out there, we have Micro Focus LoadRunner Enterprise CloudBurst. And when using LRE CloudBurst, you do not need to have an account with an external cloud provider, nor do you need any previous cloud experience, since that is all taken care of by Micro Focus. This still allows you to dynamically provision cloud load generators all around the globe, and we support AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud as well. Again, there is, of course, plenty of information in the online help about how to get started with LRE CloudBurst. So again, if you have any questions, please have a look there, and hopefully they will all be answered to you. Then for the requirements for this, you more or less only have to sign up for LRE CloudBurst with Micro Focus, and we will cover that soon. And LRE CloudBurst is also based on credits, so you prepay for a number of credits on the Micro Focus partner portal, which is linked from the online help, and then you get a license there, and then you enter that license back into LoadRunner Enterprise. So again, for this, you do not need any cloud experience to start using cloud load generators from the different supported cloud providers. Then, in a similar way as when we added the AWS account, we go into the cloud area in the administration. We select Add Cloud Account, and then we select to use LRE CloudBurst. Then you just fill in your details, the email and your company name, and then you click the Save button. And when you do that, then there's a pop-up with the LRE CloudBurst account number, which you then use to activate your CloudBurst account. And that is then done by supplying the account number you see here to the licensing delivery center to activate your account. And again, this is all outlined in the ADM Help Center, so please look there for the URL to the licensing delivery center. And then when you got that email back and you got a license back from the licensing delivery center, we can now enter that into LoadRunner Enterprise. And first we have to select our newly created LRE CloudBurst account, and then we select to add credits on the Purchases tab. We then copy and paste the license into the pop-up, and it will then be added to your LRE tenant. And when I did that, we can now see that I have 100 CloudBurst credits that were added to my tenant here. And then, of course, don't forget to enable the CloudBurst functionality to whichever projects, or assign it to whatever projects you want for where you would like to be able to use this. Again, some network settings here. So before you start using LRE CloudBurst, you will have to verify that the ports for this is set correctly. And while I believe that these are the default port settings, you still need to verify them. And this is, of course, also outlined in the online help, so please check there for some more information. So to then start using LRE CloudBurst load generators in your tests, you simply have to switch from assigning load generators to assigning LRE CloudBurst when setting up a test or editing a test. And when you do that, that will then result in a pop-up. And here we first have to select from what location around the world. And there are about 37 or so. And so there's a big chance that whatever location we require for testing, it might be available here as well. It's also worth noting that this is location focused. So depending on what location you select, you can either end up with using AWS, Azure, or Google Cloud hardware and infrastructure. The second step is to select the template for a load generator. And this is then where you'll see which cloud provider you will be using. And you can then here select either to use Windows or a Linux load generator. And once you've selected that, the cloud load generators are then added and are visible on the edit page test. And then to start the test, it looks similar to when using the cloud integration, and we will see where in the world the load generators are being provisioned. And once are all up and running, the rest of the checkpoints have finished, the test is then started. And again, the only way to see that this is running on cloud hardware is that the load generators used in the test are named according to their IP addresses here. And then once a test is stopped, or just you're stopping it, again, it is a must that you collate your results when doing so. Since again, otherwise those results will be lost due to the machines hosting the load generator software will be terminated and all the data will be wiped from them. And and with that, we've now come to the end of what I wanted to present to you here today. So I thank you all for your time here today. I hope it was beneficial to you and that you found it interesting, and that I will see you back at the next webinar in about a month's time.